I always believed that trust was the foundation of a strong marriage. Love alone isn't enough. A real marriage is built on trust, on knowing without a doubt that the person beside you would never betray you. I never had a reason to doubt my wife. She was intelligent, caring, and independent. She had a stable job, a great group of friends, and we had what I thought was a solid relationship. So when she told me she would be away for a few days for a work conference, I didn't think twice about it. She had business trips before, and I never questioned them. It was normal for her to attend company retreats, networking events, and industry seminars. I even helped her pack, teasing her about stuffing too many outfits into her suitcase for just a couple of days. She laughed, kissed me, and reassured me that she'd be back before I knew it. I watched her drive away that morning, feeling nothing but love and trust. But that trust shattered when I received an unexpected email later that day. I was at home going through some work emails when a notification popped up on my phone. It was from the hotel booking app we sometimes use for vacations. At first, I almost ignored it, assuming it was just an advertisement, but then I noticed the subject line, "Your recent reservation confirmation." My brows furrowed. We hadn't booked a trip. We had no upcoming plans. I clicked on the email. There it was, a hotel reservation under my wife's name. But something was off. The hotel wasn't in the city where her conference was supposed to be held. In fact, it was over an hour away. And it wasn't a business hotel. It wasn't the kind of place where corporate events happen. It was a luxury resort. A pit formed in my stomach as I scrolled further. The room type wasn't a standard single. It was a king suite. The reservation was for 2 guests. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening, my mind scrambling for an explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe her company had changed venues last minute. Maybe there was some reasonable explanation. But deep down, I already knew. Something wasn't right. I didn't know what was worse. The immediate wave of nausea that hit me when I saw the confirmation, or the fact that my first instinct wasn't to ask her about it, because a part of me already knew she was going to lie. And for the first time in my marriage, I felt something I had never felt before. Doubt. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The more I stared at that hotel reservation, the more my mind raced through possibilities. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. I wanted to tell myself that my wife, the woman I had trusted with my life, would never betray me like this. But the details didn't add up. She had told me her work conference was being held in the city, at a well-known corporate hotel. She had even complained about how dull these events usually were, how she hated networking with colleagues and sitting through endless PowerPoint presentations. She had sighed dramatically while packing, saying she wished she could just skip it altogether. So why was she staying at a luxury resort an hour away from the conference venue? Why did the reservation say 2 guests? My mind kept circling back to that last detail. 2 guests. It wasn't just a different hotel. It was a place meant for couples, for getaways, for privacy. I clenched my jaw and exhaled slowly, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe her company had booked last-minute accommodations elsewhere. Maybe she had been upgraded to a larger suite. Maybe the 2 guests was a mistake. But my gut told me otherwise. I needed answers, but calling her wouldn't work. She'd have a lie ready. She'd laugh it off, say I was overreacting, make me feel ridiculous for even doubting her. I'd seen it happen before with other people. Husbands who trusted too blindly, who believed every excuse, only to find out later that their wives had been lying to their faces the entire time. I wasn't going to be one of those husbands. I decided to start small. I pulled up the website for the conference she claimed to be attending and searched for the venue. As expected, it was nowhere near the resort she had booked. I double-checked the dates and agenda. There were no evening networking events, no off-site retreats, just standard panel discussions, workshops, and keynote speeches held at the designated business hotel. A cold realization settled in. She wasn't at that conference. My hands were sweating as I reached for my phone. I hovered over her contact, my thumb trembling slightly. Should I just call her? Hear her voice? Ask her outright? But the logical part of my brain told me to wait. If she was lying, she had already rehearsed her excuses. If I confronted her too soon, she'd go into damage control mode. I needed more proof. The next step was checking our shared bank account. She had used our joint credit card to book the hotel, which was why I had received the email confirmation. But what else had she spent money on? I scrolled through the transaction history, scanning each entry carefully. That's when the pieces started to fall into place. There was a dinner reservation 2 nights ago at an upscale restaurant. one we had talked about visiting together but never had the chance to go. She had gone without me. Then a spa package purchased the same evening, one that included a couple's massage. I stared at the transaction, my stomach twisting into knots. There was no more room for doubt. She wasn't just staying at a resort. She was there with someone. The walls around me seemed to close in. My mind felt heavy, like it was being suffocated under the weight of realization. My wife, the woman who had promised to love me, to be faithful to me, wasn't where she said she would be. But who was she with? I sat back, gripping my phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My instincts screamed at me to do something, to call her and demand an explanation, to get in my car and drive straight to that resort and catch her in the act. But I forced myself to stop. I needed to be smart. If I acted impulsively, she would deny everything. She would gaslight me, twist the story, make me feel like I was the one being paranoid. I had seen it happen before, to friends, to coworkers. Cheaters had a way of making their partners feel crazy, turning their guilt into your insecurity. I wasn't going to let that happen to me. So, I made a plan. I was going to go to that resort. I was going to see the truth with my own eyes. The drive to the resort felt longer than it should have. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The GPS told me I was just 45 minutes away, but each second felt like an eternity. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a text from my wife, something, anything, that would make this all a terrible misunderstanding. But there was nothing. By the time I reached the resort, the sky was dark, and so were my thoughts. What if I was wrong? What if she had some kind of explanation? But deep down, I knew better. I had already seen enough. The hotel reservation, the credit card transactions, the couple's massage. She was cheating on me. I was about to see it with my own eyes. The resort came into view, its entrance lined with neatly trimmed hedges and glowing lanterns. It was the kind of place we used to dream about visiting together. The kind of place meant for romantic getaways, not work conferences. My stomach twisted. I parked a short distance away from the main entrance, taking a deep breath before stepping out of the car. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and salt water from the nearby coast. Couples walked past me, laughing, holding hands, completely unaware that my world was crumbling. I pulled my baseball cap lower over my forehead, keeping my head down as I walked toward the lobby. I had thought about checking in with a fake name, maybe even booking a room to give myself a reason to be there. But in the end, I decided against it. I wasn't here to play games. I was here to catch my wife in the act. As I stepped inside, the warmth of the resort's interior wrapped around me. The sound of soft jazz played over the speakers, mingling with the chatter of guests sipping cocktails at the bar. I walked toward the front desk, my heart pounding. "Hi, welcome to Coastal Haven. Do you have a reservation?" The receptionist asked, offering a professional smile. I returned the smile, forcing myself to stay calm. "Actually, I'm supposed to meet someone here. My wife checked in earlier today. Would you be able to tell me her room number?" The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out guest information for privacy reasons." I expected that. I nodded, pretending to think. That makes sense. She actually forgot her phone at home, and I just wanted to make sure she got checked in okay. Maybe you can confirm if she arrived. The receptionist glanced at the computer screen, then back at me. "She did check in this afternoon." I forced a chuckle. "That's a relief. And I assume she's in the room she booked?" Another pause. The receptionist shifted slightly. "Actually, there was a change to the reservation. She upgraded to one of our private villas." A private villa? Not just a suite, but a completely secluded space away from the main hotel. My pulse roared in my ears. My wife had upgraded the reservation, meaning she had planned this. She had made it even more intimate, even more romantic. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and gave the receptionist another easy smile. "Perfect. Thanks for your help." I turned and walked away before she could ask any more questions. I stepped outside, the fresh air doing nothing to ease the burning in my chest. My fists clenched at my sides. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable enough to upgrade to a secluded villa. She had been so sure she wouldn't get caught. I pulled up the resort map from the website on my phone. The villas were located past the pool area, down a winding stone path surrounded by lush greenery. My heart pounded. As I made my way there, my footsteps silent against the pavement. As I neared the row of private villas, I slowed down, scanning each number until I found hers. A single light glowed from inside. The curtains were drawn, but through the slight gap I could see shadows moving. My fingers curled into fists. I wanted to burst in, to catch her in the act, to let her see the rage in my eyes as she realized her web of lies had collapsed. But I held myself back. I pulled out my phone and hit record. I had come all this way. I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of this. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Silence. Then muffled footsteps. A moment later, the door creaked open just slightly, enough for her to peek out. The moment she saw me, her face drained of color. What are you doing here?" she stammered. I pushed the door open before she could stop me. And there he was. A man, half-dressed, standing in the middle of the room. I felt my entire body go rigid. The rage bubbling inside me threatened to explode. My wife didn't even try to deny it. Her lips parted, her eyes wide with shock and fear, like a deer caught in headlights. This isn't," she stammered, her voice barely above a breath. I let out a sharp but bitter laugh. "Really? Because it looks exactly like what I thought it was." The man shifted awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe I should go." "Yeah," I snapped, "and maybe you should." He grabbed his shirt and slipped past me, practically running out the door. That left just the two of us. My wife's hands trembled as she reached for me. "I can explain." I took a step back, shaking my head. "Number, you don't get to explain. You don't get to stand here looking at me like you're sorry. You knew exactly what you were doing." Tears welled in her eyes. "It didn't mean anything." I scoffed. "A mistake? You booked a private villa. You upgraded the room. You planned this." She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." My voice was eerily calm now, the rage settling into something cold, something final. "And now you're going to live with it." I turned to leave, pausing at the door just long enough to glance back at her one last time. "You might want to get yourself a good lawyer, because by the time I get home, the papers will be in motion." Her breath hitched. "Please." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. The night air hit me like a wave, cool and sharp against my burning skin. I took a deep breath, letting it all sink in. It was over. I didn't look back. Not when I walked out of that villa, not when I got into my car, and not when I drove away from the resort that had become the graveyard of my marriage. The only sound was the hum of the engine, and the occasional vibration of my phone on the passenger seat. I knew who it was. She had already started calling the second I left, probably still standing in that doorway, desperate, panicked, realizing just how badly she had messed up. I didn't answer. When I got home, the silence in the house was deafening. The place that once felt warm, filled with the presence of someone I loved, now felt cold, empty, tainted. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the pictures on the walls. Our wedding photos, vacations, memories that I now knew were built on lies. The phone rang again, then a text. "Just talk to me, please. You don't have to do this." I exhaled slowly, my chest rising and falling as I stared at the words. A mistake. Number A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. This was a choice. A deliberate, calculated choice. One that she had made over and over, long before I ever found out. I deleted the message, and did what I should have done the moment I saw that reservation confirmation. I called a lawyer. The divorce process was swift. At first she fought it, begging, crying, sending long-winded emails, trying to explain. She claimed she had been confused, that she still loved me, that what we had was real. But every word rang hollow. She didn't love me. She loved the security I provided. She loved the stability of our life together, but not enough to be faithful. When she realized that her pleas weren't working, the desperation turned to anger. "You're really going to throw away our marriage over the one mistake?" She spat during one of our phone calls. I laughed bitterly. "You threw it away the moment you decided to book that villa." After that, she tried to turn things around, telling her family, our friends, anyone who would listen, that I was being unreasonable, that I wasn't giving her a chance to fix things. But the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't leave room for second chances. Her family was devastated. Her mother, once so proud of her daughter's marriage, could barely look at her. Her father, who had respected me like a son, personally called me to apologize, something she had never done herself. And our friends? Well, people talk. News spreads. And when everyone learned the truth, she was the one left standing alone. The day of our divorce hearing was the last time I saw her. She sat across from me, dressed in a plain black dress, her eyes hollow, her once carefully curated appearance looking worn down, exhausted. This wasn't the confident, independent woman I had once admired. This was someone who had gambled and lost everything. She barely spoke. Even her lawyer seemed uninvested, probably realizing there was nothing to fight for. The judge reviewed the case, glanced at the evidence, and in the end, I won. She got nothing. No alimony, no division of assets. I walked out of that courtroom with everything we built together, and she walked away with only the weight of her mistakes. As I stepped outside, I felt the warmth of the sun on my skin. I expected to feel angry or vindicated or maybe even bitter, but all I felt was free. I didn't look back. Not then, not ever. Trust is a fragile thing. It takes years to build, moments to break, and a lifetime to repair, if it ever can be. I used to believe that love alone was enough to keep a marriage strong, that as long as two people cared for each other, honesty and loyalty would follow naturally. But the truth is, love without trust is nothing. My wife made a choice. She didn't just stumble into an affair. She planned it, nurtured it, protected it. She made reservations. She booked a villa. She lied, straight-faced, looking into my eyes, telling me she was at a conference while she was with another man. And when she was caught, her first instinct wasn't remorse. It was to control the damage. That's what betrayal does. It isn't just about the physical act. It's about the deception, the manipulation, the way cheaters rewrite history in real time, convincing themselves and everyone around them that their actions aren't as bad as they seem. That's why I never gave her a second chance. Because she was never sorry for what she did, only for getting caught. Some people might say I should have tried to save my marriage, that I should have listened to her excuses, gone to therapy, worked through our issues. But here's the thing. I wasn't the one who broke us. It wasn't my job to fix what she had shattered. She made a decision, and I made mine. So if you ever find yourself questioning your partner, feeling that deep, unsettling doubt creeping into your mind, trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. And if someone is willing to betray you once, they will do it again. Now I'm moving forward, and I refuse to let her choices define me. I've learned that walking away from betrayal isn't weakness, it's strength. Because in the end, the worst thing you can do isn't losing someone who didn't value you, it's losing yourself trying to hold on to them. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed and tried to fix things? Or would you have walked away like I did?